Pandit, several people have commented to me on the lives of the enlightened saints of India, Ramana Maharshi and Ramakrishna. Both these men were highly regarded as living in the Turiya state, in transcendental consciousness, and yet their lives were relatively short, perhaps no longer than 60 years, and both men died of cancer. What can you say about the nature of biological laws applying to the person who is in extended state of consciousness?
Now, the present conception is that enlightenment represents communion with God, or even some people say that God becomes incarnate in an enlightened person. This naturally gives rise to the idea that the enlightened person must be all-powerful and all-knowing. But the view I am presenting is different. Enlightened consciousness is the next higher stage of consciousness designed for man. Therefore, by ascension to the next higher consciousness, he does not necessarily become infallible or immune to biological laws. The biological laws will work as effectively on an enlightened person as they work on an unenlightened one. Therefore, it is natural that at some period in their lives, decay would set in or diseases would come to end the life, in biological terms. I have often mentioned this also, that man, in order to live happily on earth and to evolve to the dimension designed for him, has to be efficient both on the intellectual level and also on the level of transcendental consciousness. He has to be a man and a superman both. Intellect is needed to fight against disease, against want, against natural calamities, so that his body remains safe and healthy, and super consciousness is needed to understand the reality, to know the secrets which are not accessible to the intellect. So therefore, a complete man, the perfect man of the future, would be both an intellectual, that is a philosopher, a scientist, and a man with a higher consciousness also. This is the ideal of the future man before my eyes. The fact that religion neglected the world and considered that withdrawal or detachment from the world was necessary to reach God has done great harm to spirituality. It has been a lopsided view which did not take into account the fact that man is composed of two entities, the body and the spirit, and both have to be looked into and both have to be cared for. Too much obsession for the body makes humanity hedonist, luxurious, voluptuous, and leads to degeneration. Too much obsession to the spirit makes the body weak and the mind prone to obsessions and ideas which are not correct. Therefore, man has to live the middle path, to take care of his mind, of his body and his spirit in a proportionate way, so that there is a perfect evolution of all the three components of human beings. Therefore, to think that if a man has reached an enlightened state, he should be immune to disease or infallible is not correct. It is a fallacy. And often people try to explain this, that the saint took the sins of the world upon himself, or that it was his karma, or that he was too much engrossed in the spirit and therefore paid no attention to the body. These are mere presumptions. They don't represent the reality in a rational way. The reality is that it will need aeonian spans of time for man to become perfect and perfectly established in higher consciousness, as also to gain the mastery of his body. The present enlightened human beings whom we meet are still short of the perfect man of the future.
In your own case, the awakening of Kundalini took a violent, explosive form. For years, your body was racked with pain, suffering. Is this the way that the Kundalini experience will happen to everyone, or does it take other forms?
You see, now let us look at it this way, that Kundalini is the evolutionary mechanism interwoven with the whole nervous and organic structure of the body. We should view it from this light. We should not view it as something interposed. We should view Kundalini as an organic mechanism interwoven with the brain and the nervous system and all the organic structure of the body. Just as sexual proclivity is interwoven with the whole structure of the body, you can see its effects in the masculine and feminine characteristics, its effects in the play of love. It is interwoven with the whole of our structure. Similarly, the evolutionary mechanism is interwoven with the whole of the organic structure of the human body. Now, let us assume for a moment that evolution is proceeding without our knowledge, and that some individuals are more ripe from the evolutionary point of view than others. In corroboration of this fact, I can cite the cases of geniuses, cases of men and women of exceptional intelligence. No one can deny that they are better equipped mentally and more evolved in the sphere of intelligence and talent than the normal human being. This is very easily comprehensible. Now, in some cases, the evolutionary mechanism attains to a state of maturity without the knowledge of the person. What that person experiences is a desire to reach God, a desire for self-realization, a desire for the occult and the unseen from his childhood. He does not know why is it so. He just feels it in his consciousness, and he is always reading and talking and questioning himself about the unknown and the unknowable. Now, in some cases, when they meditate, this power now, which has already transformed the brain and the nervous system to the required degree of efficiency, at once rises into the head. The result is that the man leaps from one dimension of consciousness to the other. And to maintain that dimension of consciousness now, the power through the nervous system circulates in all the organs to save the brain. This is the violent awakening of Kundalini. The cerebrospinal system is ripe for the experience. With meditation, at once it starts to function in the higher dimension of consciousness, while the individual is accustomed only to the normal consciousness. So this transition is so abrupt, and it has such drastic consequences for the body that for months or years a state of storm and stress exists in the body, to which he has to adjust himself. If the system is not fully mature, if the cerebrospinal system is not fully mature, Kundalini does not then awaken at once, but it first tries to adjust the system until she can go up to the brain. In this process, those people who meditate, they only see the Kundalini working gradually. For them it becomes imperceptible until the point of maturity is reached. By that time they have become accustomed to their daily practice, and they experience bliss or light or anything without an explosion. But in the cases of those in whom the cerebrospinal system is ripe and who meditate intensively, such an abrupt awakening can occur. Now I shall in this connection also discuss the concept of Jnana Yoga.
Jnana Yoga.
Yes. There is a view, especially expressed by Shankaracharya, that merely by thinking that the soul is real and the world is an illusion, one can reach a state of consciousness where the world actually appears to be an illusion, and the underlying reality, that is Brahman, is perceived as the one reality pervading the whole creation. And there have been many Jnana Yogis who had this experience without meditating for long periods of time. In fact, even in Bhagavad Gita you find Karma Yoga, the yoga of action, of selfless action, also conducive to enlightenment. Now we cannot reconcile either Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga with the concept of meditation and reflection and prayer and worship. Because in the later case, we see that certain practices and disciplines are necessary to arouse Kundalini. But in Karma Yoga, it is action without any selfish interest. And in Jnana Yoga, it is just the thought that the world is unreal and the Atman is real, which leads to higher states of consciousness. How does this happen? The answer is the same. In some people, the cerebrospinal system has already reached a state of ripeness where just reflection or a meditation, or even without that, spontaneously, as in the case of Tennyson, or as in the case of many of